Hello and welcome back to part 4 of building a stirling engine. On the last time we've made all the parts for the hot side of the engine, not the cold side. If you can remember, a stirling engine has a cold and a hot side, and it's running smooth right now. It has like almost no friction, but if it's airtight or not, we have to check it later on, but I'm confident it is. I hope so. And also the big hole on the side, this is where the connecting tube will sit, which connects the hot and the cold side. And this screw is a bit shorter than before. The reason is that it would just come out from this hole, and that's why I had to make it a bit shorter. And also the glass tube is a bit shorter too, because I just want a bit less air gap between the glass and the displacer piston. So that's what I did off the camera, and now we're gonna talk about the cold side of the engine. So this piece is the cylinder of the cold side, and it will look really nice at the end. I'm just cutting it to length and measuring it out. At the end it will have 3 holes. Spoiler, one hole is not straight. It is the smallest hole of them. This is where the oiler will sit. This hole looks good. This hole, the connecting rod, not the connecting rod, the connecting tube will sit. And this tiny hole, it looks straight, but it isn't. And it bothers me a lot, but I can't change it, and I have to live with that. And also this is for the piston itself. I had to make this hole twice because this drill bit wasn't straight, and it was a bit shaky. So I had to use another drill bit and made this part again. But it's okay, now I know why the hole wasn't straight. And also this cylinder will have some cooling fins as well as the hot side. So the cooling function of the engine is so great that you can let it run without ever overheating. And that's really great for the purpose of this engine, because it will run with a candle. And as you know, a candle runs gives heat for like around 4 hours. And so this engine can run for 4 hours straight. Or if you make a candle change, it will run for like, I don't know, my record was like 12 hours straight, just from on the morning to the night. And it was really great watching it run without ever stopping, what the engine is even capable of. No? I mean, it doesn't have that much of strength, but it's very nice to watch and just see the parts moving and functioning, and that's what I really enjoy building this engine. So I'm just using an old piston and some polish paste, and just getting it in there and getting the inner surface as smooth as possible. And I repeated this process, I don't know, like 4 or 5 times. After each time I have to clean it, and and if the piston on the inside doesn't run good enough, I just have to repeat the process. But if you take a bit too much material off, even though it is just polishing, it takes a bit of the surface off, you can ruin it, and the engine isn't airtight. So that's really some steps you have to bring a lot of patience. And this is the connecting tube which will sit between the hot and the cold side and connects the both sides of the engine. And you can even take the engine apart. I mean, it is just held by pressing it in, as you can see. And that's for the both sides of the engine, so that if you have to clean everything, you can just take everything apart and clean it. So that's very nice and unique of the engine, I think. And also these two silicone seals, they're heat resistant, and if they ever get damaged or you have to replace them, you can take them off and replace them as you want. And the engine has to be airtight on these parts. I mean, that's most important parts, because they want to leak air from the sides of the hole. But we're gonna test it now. And for testing, I'm just using this air pump, which I'm actually using for cleaning, but it has like two purposes, which is nice. And I just cut a hose from a training band, this yellow one, and with just pumping air in the engine, it's hard to close all the holes, but as you can see, it's working, and you can see that there's no bubbles coming out. So that's a really good sign that this engine is airtight. And this part is the piston. I mean, that's the main thing I'm watching the most if the engine is running. And if you have a Stirling engine or just read a little bit about it, it's a bit of controversial that I'm using a piston made of aluminum. It's because aluminum will expand if it gets hot, and so it can get stuck on the piston on the cylinder, and that's why most people don't use a piston made of aluminum. The reason why I can use it is simple. This engine doesn't get that hot because it's just heated by a candle, and also has a lot of cooling fins, which keeps the engine cool. I mean, I let this engine run for 12 hours without any problems. But yeah, I gonna test some other materials like graphite, which is also really great for a piston, and also you don't have to lubricate it, so it's lubricating itself. So that's really unique. And yeah, I'm just polishing again this part as well as the cylinder. So I have to polish both parts until it's really nice and shiny and smooth as possible. So if I'm pushing the piston in, so there's like almost no friction, that's a best case scenario. So these tiny parts, like the sleeve and the pin, you can see it on the part 3 of this series, and it's just the same as the parts for the hot side of the engine. And yeah, now I'm just gonna test it if the piston is like smooth and also airtight. So I'm just blocking the hole on the side and pushing the piston in, and you can see that it always springs back. So that's a really good sign that it's airtight, and very important as well. And now watch the piston move forward if I put the glass tube on. So you can see that the piston always wants to stay on this position, on the forward position. So that's a sign that there's a bit of pressure on the inside of the engine and it doesn't just go out. So that's a really good sign that the engine holds the pressure inside, and that's what we need for running this engine. And now before we start the engine, just let me do the last part. It is just the oiler which will sit on top of the cylinder and provide the piston with lubricant. And yeah, this part is, I mean, it's really simple to make, and also it looks great in the end. And this piece is the lid of the oiler. It has a little hole on the middle of the lid. That's just because if the oil wants to run down, it creates a vacuum on the inside and it can't run down if there was no hole. So that's why there's a tiny hole on the top of the oiler. To glue them together, I'm just using a bit of Loctite. Before that, I've used super glue, but it just leaves a really big mess at the end, and Loctite doesn't dry as fast and you can just wipe the excess off. So that's why at the end it will just look a bit cleaner and it also holds really tight if you let it dry. So before we attach the oiler on the cylinder, we just have to make one last step. That's to stuff as much cotton on the inside of the tube as possible. The reason why I'm putting cotton on the inside is very simple, because there's this hole which is like 1 millimeter, and the oil would just drop down instantly. And to prevent that, so it just gets feeds the piston with just a really tiny bit of oil, I'm just stuffing a bit of cotton on the inside. So it's so effective that the oil on the tube will stay like, I don't know, 1 week. And this oiler just holds like 2 or 3 drops. So it's like you oiling the piston on the inside with 2 to 3 drops of oil like a week. And that's, I think, a really good grade for a Stirling engine. Yeah, now that's the last step of before we start the engine. I'm sorry. So before we can start, we have to put some rubber feet on the ground plate, and that's just preventing it from making so much noise and also damping a bit of vibration. So now I'm very excited. So the engine is finished. and yeah, you can see there's just a tiny candle, and the engine wants to run, but it still struggles a bit. So I have to polish the inner surface of the cylinder and the piston maybe again until it doesn't struggle. You can see if the piston moves to the inside, it gets a bit slower though. That's a good sign that it has a bit of friction. And this part is the most enjoyable for me. It's just running the Stirling engine a bit slower and just enjoying the movement. And with the help of this massive flywheel, this engine can run really slow, but it's still a bit struggling on the cold side. So there's a bit of friction for the piston, and I will just polish it again. On the next video, I'm just letting the engine run, and so you can just enjoy it running. And yeah, thank you for all the nice comments and that you subscribe to my channel. It means a lot for me, and it motivates me to keep doing what I love. And I will see you on the next video. Bye.